a good woman, and I know my duty." Nancy blushed once again. "Of course," she said quietly. "I only meant that a little girl might brighten things up a bit. She might be good company for you." "Thank you," Miss Polly said coldly. "I don't think I have an immediate need for company." "But you must want to see her," Nancy said. "She is your sister's child, after all." Nancy realized she might have to welcome this lonely little girl on her own. Miss Polly held her head high and looked sternly at her servant. "If my sister was silly enough to marry and bring yet another child into this world when we have more than enough already, that is her business. I can't see why I must now be responsible for it. I mean, her. However, as I've said, I know my duty." Miss Polly turned to leave. She paused at the doorway and looked back at Nancy. "Make sure you clean all the corners in the living room," she said. "I don't want to see any dust on the furniture." "Yes, ma'am," Nancy said. Then she turned back to the sink to finish the dishes. Miss Polly sat at the desk in her room. She took a letter out of the drawer and read it. She had read this letter many times over the past 2 days. She had been very surprised by its arrival. It was addressed to Miss Polly Harrington, Beldingsville, Vermont, and read as follows. "Dear Madam, I regret to inform you that your brother-in-law, the Reverend John Whittier, died 2 weeks ago. He left one child, an 11-year-old daughter. He owned very little, other than a few books. As you know, he was the pastor for this small parish and had a very small salary. I understand that he was your deceased sister's husband. He told me that your families were not on the best of terms. However, he thought you might wish to take the child for your sister's sake. Therefore, I am writing to you. Please let me know if you can take the child. There is a couple from the parish heading east soon. They could bring Pollyanna as far as Boston. We will tell you which train from Boston to Beldingsville she will arrive on. Hoping to hear a favorable response from you soon. Respectfully yours, Jeremiah O. White." Miss Polly folded the letter and slipped it back inside the envelope. She had already sent word that she would take the child. What else could she do? It was an unpleasant task, but she could not ignore her responsibilities. She thought about her sister Jenny, the child's mother. Jenny had only been 20 years old when she insisted on marrying the young reverend. The whole family objected to the match, but Jenny was stubborn. She had other suitors, including a very wealthy man that the family approved of, but Jenny was not interested. The Reverend had no money, but he did have a great deal of youthful enthusiasm and a heart full of love. Jenny married the Reverend and went west with him as a missionary's wife. Miss Polly had only been 15 when her sister left, but she still remembered it well. Jenny had written often for the first few years. She told the family about her husband and children. Unfortunately, all of her children died, except for the last little girl, Pollyanna. Jenny had named her daughter after her 2 sisters, Polly and Anna, but Mr. and Mrs. Harrington had refused to respond to Jenny's letters, and eventually the letters stopped coming. A few years later, the family received a sad note from the Reverend saying Jenny had died. It had been 25 years since Jenny had left home. Miss Polly was now 40 years old. Even though she still lived in the big house on the hill, many things had changed. She was now all alone in the world. Her father, mother, and sisters had all died. Some people suggested she find a friend or companion to live with her in the big house. They all thought she was lonely, but she always refused. She insisted that she was not lonely. She preferred